Jack Webb might have looked calm and cool when you saw him on TV, but when the cameras turned off, he was totally different. He was a man who always spoke his mind and never kept his feelings hidden inside. Throughout all the years he worked in Hollywood, he got to work with tons and tons of different actors. But here's the thing. Some of these actors really got under his skin. They pushed him to his breaking point. These weren't just little arguments or small fights that happened once in a while. Oh no, these were huge, explosive battles. We're talking about massive clashes of egos, struggles over pride, and pure, raw frustration that filled the air. Webb didn't just sort of dislike these people or find them a bit annoying. He genuinely, truly, deeply hated them with every fiber of his being. And the anger he felt? It didn't just disappear when the day was over. It left a mark, a scar that lasted for years and years, long after the cameras stopped rolling and everyone went home. In this video today, we're going to dig deep and uncover the 5 actors that Jack Webb despised the most. These are the people who tested every ounce of his patience, who dared to challenge his authority and control, and who earned his lasting wrath and anger that never went away. Actor number 1, John Randolph. Before we dive into the conflicts, let me tell you about Jack Webb's early life and how he became the man everyone knew. Jack Webb was born on April 2, 1920, in a city called Santa Monica, California. It's a beach town near Los Angeles. But his story didn't start with happiness and joy. Instead, it began with deep heartbreak and sadness. You see, his father left the family and abandoned them before Jack was even born. Can you imagine that? He never even got to meet his dad when he was a baby. This meant that young Jack had to be raised by just his mother and his grandmother. They lived in a rough, tough neighborhood called Bunker Hill in Los Angeles. Life in that neighborhood was far from easy or comfortable. There was poverty all around them, meaning they didn't have much money. There was uncertainty about tomorrow, never knowing what would happen next. And there was this restless sense of yearning and wanting something more, something better. All of these hard things shaped and molded his early years as a kid. Yet, even with all the noise and chaos of the big city around him, and even with all the daily struggles of just getting by and surviving, young Jack found quiet comfort and peace in being creative and making art. When he went to Belmont High School as a teenager, Jack became deeply involved and super interested in the radio club at school. This is where he first discovered something amazing: the power of voice and sound. He learned how words and sounds could tell stories and make people feel things. He also showed remarkable skill and incredible talent as an artist who could draw really well. He contributed witty, funny cartoons to the school yearbook, and everyone loved them. He earned lots of admiration and respect for his artistic talent. His classmates and friends saw in him both a natural leader and a dreamer who had big ideas. In fact, he was so popular and respected that he was even elected student body president of the whole school. People remembered him for his warmth, his kindness, and his sincerity. He was genuine and real with everyone. After Jack graduated from high school, he decided to pursue art studies at St. John's University way up in Minnesota, which is pretty far from California. He was hoping to turn his deep love for drawing into a real career that could support him. But then, the whole world soon changed in a huge way. When World War II erupted and broke out across the globe, Webb made a big decision. He joined the United States Army Air Force because he was determined to serve his country and do his part. He had big dreams of becoming a pilot, flying planes high up in the sky. But fate and destiny had other plans for him, different from what he imagined. His flying ambitions and dreams were cut short and ended when he failed flight training. He just couldn't make it through. Instead of flying, he ended up working as a clerk and typist, doing paperwork and typing documents. Later on, he earned what they called a hardship discharge, which meant he could leave early to go support his mother and grandmother who needed him back home. Yet, even while wearing his military uniform And serving, Jack found his voice once more and again. He spent time performing in USO shows, which were special entertainment shows for soldiers. This is where he discovered the stage presence and confidence that would one day, in the future, make him a Hollywood legend that everyone would know and remember. Starting his career in radio after Jack got his discharge from the Army Air Force and left military service, he returned to regular civilian life in the city of San Francisco. And that's where fate and luck handed him an unexpected break. A surprise opportunity. There was a wartime shortage of radio announcers because so many men were away at war. And this opened the door for Jack to get his very own program on ABC's KGO radio station. The show was called The Jack Webb Show, and it was a light-hearted comedy series that made people laugh. It aired briefly for a short time in 1946, but Webb's sharp instincts and smart gut feelings soon drew him away from humor and comedy. He started moving toward the grittier, darker world of crime stories and human drama that showed real-life struggles. He had already shown his versatility and ability to do different things with a show called 1 Out of 7. This was a solo radio program where he performed every single role himself. Can you believe that? He played all the characters. He used powerful storytelling to challenge prejudice and unfairness, and to reveal society's hidden truths that people didn't want to talk about. By 1949, Webb's voice had become a fixture, something regular and expected in radio noir. Radio noir means dark, mysterious radio shows about crime. He captivated audiences and grabbed their attention as the tough-talking detective in a show called Pat Novak for Hire. This show was drenched in smoky atmosphere, like you could almost smell the cigarette smoke. And it had razor-sharp dialogue with really clever writing. Other programs followed after that success. There was Johnny Madero, Pier 23, Jeff Regan, Investigator, and Pete Kelly's Blues. Each show was different, and each one deepened his mastery of the genre, making him better and better at this type of storytelling. Pretty soon, Hollywood took notice of this talented radio star. Movie studios started paying attention. Webb appeared in several films, including the famous movie Sunset Boulevard and another one called Dark City. Then he took on his most defining screen role, the one that would shape how people saw him. He played the uncompromising, super strict drill instructor in a film called The D.I. Though the film faltered at the box office, meaning it didn't make much money or get many viewers, Webb's steely intensity and tough performance left a mark on everyone who saw it. It was a powerful performance, one that would shape his entire future career and create the stoic, serious image that became his signature look and style. Jack Webb names the 5 actors he hated the most. Now, let's get into the juicy part. The actors Jack Webb couldn't stand. Number 1, Richard Boone. Richard Boone was already a respected star and famous actor before he ever crossed paths and worked with Jack Webb. When he took the lead role in a Western show called Heck Ramsey, which aired from 1972 to 1974, he wasn't just any actor playing a part. He was the driving personality of the entire show, the main force behind it. But here's the twist. Heck Ramsey wasn't truly his show to control, even though he was the star. Behind the scenes, where viewers couldn't see, it belonged to Jack Webb. Webb was the one who co-produced it through his production company, which was called Mark 7 Limited. At first, when the show started, things were smooth and peaceful. Boone enjoyed and liked the Western meets detective tone of the series. It mixed cowboys with crime-solving, which was pretty cool and unique. But that peaceful time changed dramatically when Webb began tightening his control and grip over everything. He started rewriting scripts, changing the words the actors would say. He was firing writers left and right, getting rid of people, and he was removing directors that Boone trusted and had worked with before. Boone was absolutely furious and incredibly angry about all this. He claimed and said loudly that the heart of the show, its talented writers, were being pushed out and kicked aside just so Webb could run things his way, exactly how he wanted. Rumors spread and whispers went around Hollywood that Boone confronted Webb more than once. He demanded creative respect, wanting to be treated as an important part of the show. But Jack Webb wasn't someone who negotiated or made deals or compromised with anyone. He believed strongly in absolute order and control, military-like discipline that was super strict, and loyalty to his system and his way of doing things. Boone, on the other hand, was outspoken and loud about his opinions. He was emotional and passionate, and he absolutely hated being controlled like a puppet. The two men simply didn't fit in the same room together. Their personalities clashed terribly. It was like oil and water. They just couldn't mix. Some people say that Boone threatened to walk off the show completely and quit. Others say that Webb privately called him unmanageable and impossible to work with behind closed doors. What we know for sure and can confirm is that by the final season of the show, Heck Ramsey collapsed under all these power struggles and battles for control. The show died and ended not because the ratings were bad or people stopped watching. It died because of war and fighting behind the cameras where the audience couldn't see. Whether you want to call it hatred or just extreme stubbornness and refusal to bend, one thing is absolutely certain and clear. Richard Boone was one of the very few people who dared to challenge Jack Webb and stand up to him. And he paid the price for it, suffering consequences that hurt his career. Number 2, William Conrad, before Jack Webb ever appeared on television screens as the famous Joe Friday character. Dragnet actually began its life on the radio, as a radio show, and the voice that audiences heard alongside Webb, working as his partner, wasn't Harry Morgan or any of the later partners you might remember from TV. It was William Conrad. Conrad was a powerful radio presence with an amazing voice. He had a deep voice that commanded attention, sharp timing that was perfect, and a natural dramatic instinct that made him great at acting. He helped make Dragnet a national hit that people all across America loved and tuned in to hear. Naturally and understandably. When the TV version was announced and they said Dragnet was coming to television, Conrad assumed and believed he'd move with it to the screen. He thought he'd be there on TV too, continuing as Webb's partner. But that's not what happened. He didn't get to be on the show. Jack Webb made himself the star, the main character, and hired someone else, a completely different person, to play the second lead and be his partner. Conrad was stunned and shocked. He couldn't believe it. Industry whispers and gossip suggested that he was never even seriously considered for the TV role. Not even for a second. Why would Webb do this? Some people say that Webb felt Conrad didn't look like a detective should look. They said Conrad was too heavy, too rugged and rough-looking, not TV-friendly or attractive enough for television audiences. Others say that Webb wanted full control and all the power. With Conrad gone and out of the picture, Webb became not just the lead actor, but the sole face of the entire franchise. He was the only one people associated with Dragnet. Friends of Conrad said that he felt deeply betrayed and hurt. He had helped build Dragnet from nothing, only to be shut out of its biggest success when it moved to TV and became really famous. Meanwhile, Webb rarely spoke of him again or mentioned his name. He just moved on like Conrad had never existed. Was this hatred in the truest sense? Maybe not exactly, but it was definitely cold and cruel. It was personal and it hurt, and it shaped how people viewed Jack Webb forever after that. People saw him as brilliant and talented, yes, absolutely, but also as someone who was willing to cut people loose and get rid of them when they no longer fit his image or his plans for success. Number 3. Harry Morgan. Harry Morgan and Jack Webb created one of television's most iconic partnerships that everyone remembers and loves. From 1967 onward, continuing for years, they became Joe Friday and Bill Gannon, the unshakable detective duo of Dragnet that couldn't be broken. Their chemistry on screen was effortless and natural. It looked so easy and real. Viewers absolutely loved them and tuned in every week. But behind that calm exterior and peaceful appearance on camera, there lay a quiet tension bubbling beneath the surface, a stress that was always there. Harry Morgan admired Webb and looked up to him in many ways. He often said publicly that Webb was intelligent and smart, disciplined and organized, and incredibly loyal to police officers and law enforcement. But Morgan also admitted, sometimes reluctantly, that Webb's working style was unlike anything he had experienced before in his entire acting career. It was totally different and unusual. Webb didn't rehearse scenes before filming them. He didn't allow improvisation or let actors make things up or add their own touches. He insisted, he demanded, that actors read their lines exactly as written on the page. No emotion or feeling, no dramatic flourishes or big acting moments, just a cold, flat delivery. Just the facts, nothing else. That was his motto and his rule. Morgan came from a more traditional acting background and training. He liked exploring scenes and trying different things, adding personality and character touches, and creating emotional realism that felt true and genuine. With Webb directing and controlling things, there was no room for that at all. Zero space for creativity. Every pause in speech, every single word spoken, every response given. It was all controlled by Webb down to the smallest detail. Some people on set said that Webb would get irritated and annoyed if Morgan asked for a second take to try a scene again. Others recall and remember days when Webb refused to stop filming, even if actors made mistakes or messed up, because authenticity and realness mattered more to him than perfection. Still, despite all this frustration, Harry Morgan never exploded in anger or had a big blow-up. He never walked out or quit the show. He respected Webb too much to do that. But he once quietly said in an interview, speaking carefully, "Jack was a good man." Then he paused and added, "But you had to do it his way, completely his way." That sentence, those simple words, say everything you need to know about working with Jack Webb. It tells you the whole story of what it was like. Number 4. Robert A. Sinaderiff. Jack Webb was the face and voice of Dragnet, the person everyone knew and recognized. Then Robert A. Sinader was his closest collaborator behind the scenes, working in the background. Together, as a team, they created Adam 12 and Emergency, two massively successful shows that became huge hits. They revolutionized and completely changed police and medical dramas on television forever. But even close partnerships and strong friendships can feel strain under too much control and pressure. Sinader was logical and made sense, business-minded and practical, and he cared deeply about accuracy and getting facts right, just like Webb did. They were similar in many ways, but he also believed strongly in storytelling that moved people, emotional depth that made viewers feel things, and allowing characters to grow and develop and change over time. Webb didn't always agree with this approach. In fact, he often disagreed completely. He preferred structure over sentiment, meaning he liked organization more than feelings. He liked procedure over personality, meaning he cared more about following rules than showing who people really were inside. Their biggest clash and fight came during the development of Emergency, when they were creating and planning the show. Sinader wanted stronger emotional arcs for the paramedics, the main characters. He wanted scenes that showed fear when they were scared, exhaustion when they were tired, and personal struggle when they faced hard times. Webb rejected this idea completely and said no. He argued and insisted that real emergency workers in real life didn't cry or lose control of their emotions, so neither should his characters on the show. If real paramedics stayed strong, then TV paramedics should too. Crew members who worked on the show reported and talked about heated script meetings that got intense. There was Sinader demanding character-driven stories that focused on people and their feelings. And there was Webb crossing out entire pages with his pen, just scratching them out and saying firmly, "Realism first, drama second." Facts mattered most to him, not feelings. Though they continued working together for many more years after this fight, the partnership was no longer equal or balanced like it had been. Webb had the final word and the ultimate say. Senator adapted and adjusted, but he never fully agreed or felt good about it in his heart. It wasn't loud public hatred that everyone could see. It wasn't screaming matches in front of others. It was two powerful creative minds pulling in different directions and wanting different things. One person was pulling toward humanity and showing real human feelings. The other was pulling toward pure fact and just showing what really happens. Number 5. The writers and directors. Jack Webb didn't just clash with stars and famous actors or powerful producers who had money. Oh no, he had some of his worst conflicts and biggest fights with the writers and directors who tried to bring Dragnet and his other shows to life on screen. These were the creative people doing the actual work behind the scenes. William C. Strom, one of the earliest directors of Dragnet who worked on the show from the beginning, said that working under Webb was unbearable and almost impossible to tolerate. He claimed and stated that Webb would call him in the middle of the night, waking him up from sleep, demand changes to the next day's filming, and insist they return to the studio right away, immediately. And then, after driving there and getting everything set up, Webb would change his mind hours later and want something completely different. Strom said that Webb was brilliant and talented, no doubt about that. But he was also lonely, someone who seemed to need control to feel secure and safe. Control was how he dealt with his inner fears. Writers faced an even harsher reality and tougher situation than directors. Webb was known and famous for firing people without warning or notice, especially if scripts were late and not turned in on time, or if they were too emotional and had too many feelings, or if they didn't follow real police procedures exactly as they happened in real life. One writer joked, trying to make light of a bad situation, "You don't work for Jack Webb. You survive him." That's how hard it was. It was about survival, not working. He banned improvisation completely, not allowing any creative freedom. He removed jokes and humor, crossing them out. He cut scenes that humanized characters too deeply, showing too much of their personal lives or feelings. Actors weren't allowed to interpret or understand their roles in their own way. They could only deliver the lines exactly as written, like robots reading from a script. Some talented writers and directors left voluntarily, choosing to quit on their own. Others were pushed out forcefully, fired without mercy. A few never worked with Webb again for the rest of their careers, and they made sure everyone in Hollywood knew why. They spread the word and warned others about what it was like to work with Jack Webb. Jack Webb's path to immortality and lasting fame began with a small but crucial role in a movie. It was in the 1948 crime thriller called He Walked by Night. Playing a meticulous and detail-oriented crime lab technician who examined evidence carefully, Webb found inspiration and new ideas in the film's gritty realism and technical precision. The experience of making that movie, coupled with guidance and advice from LAPD Sergeant Marty Wynn and Chief William H. Parker, real police officers who helped him, sparked an idea in his mind. This idea would forever change police drama on television and in movies. The idea was called Dragnet. When Dragnet premiered, which means it first aired and debuted, on the radio in 1949 and later on television in 1952, it brought something completely new to American entertainment that had never been seen before. That something was authenticity, realness, and truth. Webb, who starred as the stoic and serious Sergeant Joe Friday, insisted and absolutely demanded on portraying law enforcement officers not as caricatures, which means silly, exaggerated cartoon versions, or corrupt, dirty figures. Instead, he showed them as hard-working people doing their best, underpaid and not making enough money. and often unappreciated by the public who didn't thank them for their service. He wanted to show them as real human beings with real jobs. Every single episode opened with the now iconic narration, the famous words that everyone remembers. "The story you are about to see is true." Then it continued. "The names have been changed to protect the innocent." Webb's obsession with detail, his intense focus on getting every little thing right, was incredible. From the sound of footsteps echoing through police headquarters, you could hear every step. Senamilan, Chuaninko, Stuns, to the exact wording of LAPD reports, using real police language. Everything gave Dragnet a documentary-like realism. It felt like watching a real documentary about police, not a made-up TV show. This was something that audiences had never seen before in their lives. The series ran for nearly a decade, almost 10 whole years, and became a defining moment in television history that changed everything forever. Even as Dragnet dominated his career and took up most of his time, Webb explored other creative passions and interests that he cared about deeply. He brought his love of jazz music to life in a film called Pete Kelly's Blues, which came out in 1955. In it, he played a cornet player, a cornet is like a trumpet, who was caught between music and crime, torn between two worlds. Though the film never achieved commercial success or made lots of money at the box office, it revealed Webb's artistic soul, showing that he was a man equally devoted to storytelling and sound, to both acting and music. By the early 1960s, Webb transitioned behind the camera, moving away from acting. He started producing and narrating an anthology series called G.E. True. An anthology means each episode told a different story with different characters. Despite later setbacks in television production, meaning some of his shows failed or didn't do well, his influence on American pop culture endured and lasted. Webb's work redefined and completely changed the crime genre. He transformed it not through glamour or making it look fancy, and not through violence and lots of action. Instead, he changed it through quiet respect for the truth and for those who dedicated their lives to seeking justice and finding it. After parting ways with Warner Brothers in the early 1960s, which means he stopped working with that studio, Jack Webb reignited the passion that had defined his early career. He returned to what he loved most, storytelling rooted in truth and respect for the men and women behind the badge, the police officers wearing uniforms. By 1966, he began developing a revival of his most celebrated creation, his biggest success, Dragnet. He wanted to bring it back, with Harry Morgan joining him as Officer Bill Gannon. His new partner, Webb, brought Sergeant Joe Friday back to television in 1967. He was determined and committed to bridge the gap between the old Los Angeles that people remembered and the rapidly changing new one of the late 1960s, which was very different. The show was renamed each season to show it was current and happening now. Dragnet 1967, Dragnet 1968, and so on, year by year. The show tackled real-world issues like drug addiction, people using drugs, youth rebellion, young people protesting and fighting against authority, and crime prevention, stopping crimes before they happened. Though sometimes the show was unintentionally dated, meaning it seemed old-fashioned even when it was new, it remained sincere in its mission and genuine in its purpose. It was always serious about showing law enforcement as steady and reliable, moral and good, and human and real. Webb's success continued and kept going strong with Adam 12 in 1968. He co-created this show with R.A. Sinider, working together despite their past tensions. It starred Martin Milner and Kent McCord as the main actors. The series followed two LAPD patrol officers navigating the streets of Los Angeles, dealing with whatever came their way each day. With its blend of action and authenticity, mixing excitement with realness, Adam 12 became another long-running hit that lasted 7 whole seasons. It inspired a generation's understanding of police work, teaching young people what cops really did. That same year, in 1968, Webb's comedic timing shone and was displayed in his now iconic Copper Clappers Caper sketch with Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show. It was a comedy bit that became super famous. In this rare moment, we saw something unusual. The stoic, serious star broke into laughter, actually laughing out loud. This revealed the warmth beneath his famous deadpan demeanor, showing that under the serious exterior, there was a warm, funny person who could laugh and have fun. In 1972, Webb and Senator launched another enduring series that would last a long time. It was called Emergency, and it starred his former wife, Julie London. They had been married before but divorced, and her new husband, Bobby Troop. The show highlighted and focused on the life-saving work of paramedics and hospital staff, showing how they saved people's lives every day. It brought national awareness to emergency medical services, making people all across America aware of how important paramedics were. The show inspired real-world change, too. Many cities started better ambulance services because of this TV show. Emergency ran until 1977, continuing for several years, and it became Webb's final major triumph, his last big success. It was a show that blended drama, realism, and purpose all together perfectly. Though his later productions like Heck Ramsey and Project UFO found modest audiences, meaning some people watched, but not huge numbers, Webb's creative spark never dimmed or faded away. He never stopped being creative and trying new things, even toward the end of his career. Behind Jack Webb's stern screen persona and tough guy image beat the heart of a man who loved music far more than fame or being famous. Away from the world of police dramas and crime shows, he was a passionate jazz enthusiast with an intense love for jazz music. He had a collection of jazz records that reportedly exceeded 6,000 records. Can you imagine that many? His whole house must have been filled with records. Jazz wasn't just a hobby or something he did for fun. It was his refuge, his safe place where he could escape. It was his rhythm, his heartbeat, his way of escaping the rigid world of scripts and sirens and police work that filled his professional life. His devotion to the art of jazz even led him to record a few pieces himself, making his own music. He recorded several jazz songs, including a memorable version of Try a Little Tenderness. He delivered it in his trademark deadpan style, speaking the words seriously instead of singing them normally. This version later gained a cult following, with certain fans absolutely loving it and finding it unique and special. It was within this world of smoky jazz clubs and smooth melodies and beautiful music that Jack met a woman named Julie London. She was a singer and actress with a gorgeous voice. The two fell in love and married in 1947, starting their life together. They welcomed two daughters, Stacy and Lisa, into the world and built a family. But sadly, like many Hollywood marriages, theirs ended before too long. Their marriage ended in 1954 when they got divorced. Despite the heartbreak and pain of the divorce, Julie remained one of the great loves of his life. He never stopped caring about her deeply. Jack later married 3 more times after Julie, trying to find love again. He married actress Dorothy Towne, then beauty queen Jackie Loffery, and finally a woman named Opal Wright. Opal was his loyal companion and partner who stayed with him until his passing, until the day he died. She was there by his side at the end. Years and years after his death, Webb's daughter, Stacy, helped preserve and protect her father's legacy. She wanted people to remember him. She did this by authorizing his biography, giving permission for a book to be written about his life. The book was called Just the Facts, Ma'am, which was the famous phrase from Dragnet. Tragically and sadly, Stacy never lived to see its publication or hold the finished book in her hands. She was killed in a car accident just 3 years before the book's release, before it came out. Her death was unexpected and devastating. In many ways, Her loss echoed and reminded people of the quiet sorrow that often lingered beneath the surface of Jack Webb's remarkable life. Even though he seemed tough and strong, there was always sadness underneath. In the quiet hours of December 23, 1982, just 2 days before Christmas, Hollywood lost one of its most iconic figures and beloved talents. Jack Webb, the man whose steady voice and no-nonsense demeanor had become synonymous with justice and integrity, was gone. Everyone associated his voice with doing what's right. He was only 62 years old, still relatively young, when a heart attack claimed his life and took him away suddenly. It was a tragedy, something deeply sad. Many people believed and thought that his death was hastened, meaning it came sooner, because of his long battle with heavy smoking. He had smoked cigarettes for many, many years, and it damaged his heart and health. For those who admired him and looked up to him, his death felt like the end of an era, like a chapter of history was closing. It was a final fade-out for the man who had given the world Dragnet and defined the image of the dedicated American detective that everyone recognized. He had created something that would last forever. Jack was laid to rest, which means he was buried, at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills. His grave is in a section called the Sheltering Hills section. It's a serene, peaceful resting place overlooking the city of Los Angeles, the city he loved and immortalized through his work, making it famous through his TV shows. His funeral was a solemn affair, serious and sad, attended by members of the Los Angeles Police Department who came to honor him as one of their own. Even though he wasn't a real police officer, they treated him like he was family. In a rare and touching tribute that showed how much they respected him, the LAPD retired badge number 714. This was the very same badge number carried by Webb's famous alter ego, his character, Sergeant Joe Friday. They decided no other police officer would ever wear that badge number again. It was only Jack Webb's number forever. Even the city itself mourned and felt sadness. Flags across Los Angeles flew at half-staff, which means they were lowered partway down the flagpole as a sign of respect. This marked the passing of a man whose legacy blurred the line between fiction and reality. People couldn't tell where the TV character ended and the real man began. That's how realistic and authentic his work was. Though decades have passed since that day, many years have gone by, Webb's influence endures and continues to this day. His deep respect for law enforcement and his groundbreaking work in radio and television earned him 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. 1 star was for radio work, and 1 star was for television work, recognizing both mediums that carried his voice and vision to millions of people. In 1992, several years after his death, his name was forever enshrined in the Television Hall of Fame. This means it was permanently placed there to be remembered forever. This ensured and guaranteed that Jack Webb, the quiet craftsman behind Dragnet who worked so hard and cared so much, would never truly fade from memory. People will remember him always, for all time, as one of television's greatest pioneers who changed everything about how police stories were told.